early on realized that entrepreneurship is possibly not for me. I have seen my family, everyone's an entrepreneur in business, and I have seen like lot of boring things which I felt maybe I could avoid. Good experience is not going to be easy. If you crack it, you really got a secret sauce. You are aspiring to be a PM leader or a leader in any function. First aspect is be ready that your role will change dramatically. Small companies often confuse lack of structure with agility. I have learned very counterintuitively that structure actually helps you drive better agility. At Razorpay, we've been razor focused on ensuring, we will tweak the org design if needed. So it's a feature, it's not a bug. But every small team has to be focused on a problem, has to have clear customer backward goals. Relevant payments conversations with their users. It was important for us to partner with Meta to figure out how can we make the flow more native.
Hi, Khilan.
Hi, Navneet.
Good to finally have you on the podcast.
Thanks for hosting me.
Let's just dive in. You have had an illustrious career spanning over more than a decade, starting with Yahoo to T-Box to Tribo and then Razorpay. What's been the experience like for you?
Yeah, experience been amazing. From what I would have hoped about a decade, 15 years back when I started working to where I am now, the journey has been very good, fun. For most part, I realized very early in my career, coming from business background, I would rather work in smaller setups, startups where I could contribute a lot, be a large cog in a small machine rather than running in MNCs where, my impact is very, very small sized. Largely been a startup professional. And early on realized that entrepreneurship is possibly not for me. I have seen my family, everyone's an entrepreneur in business, and I have seen like lot of boring things which I felt maybe I could avoid. So I could still get, the fun aspect of entrepreneurship without, having to deal with bunch of things I really didn't want to deal with. So that's when I realized working in startups, kind of being an entrepreneur where you get to still build, you get to create value, impact, being part of the core team. So that's largely been fun for me. So now this is the fourth startup I'm working alongside an early stint in Yahoo to build some foundations. So been a interesting journey, of course, journey filled with a lot of failures. So yeah, it's emotionally challenging once in a while, but for most part, most of the learnings have come from failures, and I think those are the ones that I still carry close to my heart.
What are some of those failures you'd want to talk about, and what were your learnings?
Yeah. No, many of the failures have been interesting. Starting from the very first startup, Taggle, back in 2011, we were trying to, or organization was trying to, build a e-commerce deals setup. Very early days, Groupon, frenzy in the West, well-funded, marquee VCs, amazing team, and I think 3 or 6 months after I joined in company was a year and a half into its existence, we realized there is no PMF, right? It was a hard shock to me that we don't have product market fit, but we have decent amount of money in the bank. We've got good traction, good traffic, good brand out there. What do we do, right? And for the first time learned that, we could pivot. So one small aspect was working to some extent. And we felt, what if we could pivot and try out and scale that, right? So learning for me was that it's very, very tough to deliver great experience in that services space compared to product space. Like deals was very services. We would get deals for restaurants to help them, liquidate their inventory in times when generally they don't get traffic. But then servicing of that inventory or servicing of the end experience dependent on, so many parties out there that it was very tough to standardize it. It was not impossible, but it was very tough. And hence the big learning for me was from that stint was that delivering good experience is not going to be easy. If you crack it, you really got a secret sauce. One of the reasons,
more of a moat. Like, if you crack experience, it's a good moat to build around.
Especially in services space.
Yeah.
In product also, it becomes a moat. But at least I have learned that product comes more naturally to folks like me, delivering good experience. So the moment we pivoted into delivering physical goods, electronics, mobiles, perfumes, we realized that it's more under a control now. To deliver great experience over there, even if you get great deals over the liquidation of some long tail phones, perfumes and all that. So yeah, I think good experience all in all to do a bunch of new things, discover some hard truths in the process.
Got it. You also talked about why you prefer to work at startups versus MNCs, and you also worked at Yahoo, right?
Yeah.
So, what would be like 2-3 key differences between your experience at working at a company, like company like Yahoo, which was huge back in the day, versus some of the other startups you have worked with?
One big difference is, I think, the energy that you see around every day in and day out in a smaller setup uh, is next level, right? And that to an extent motivates if you enjoy the energy and the agility and the hustle bustle. Uh, Whereas in a larger setup, it is a lot more structured. Sometimes you get little monotonous once in a while. Not everyone's, enjoying the level of agility that some of us enjoy. So sometimes it turns out to be slow and monotonous, but very, very structured. Large setups are crazy structured. Large setups have very good quality of talent. So more often than not, you're surrounded by 10x folks all around you because they could afford to, pay truckloads of money if you have to. So large setups have their own advantages. A lot of my foundational structure in product management I've learned from my days at Yahoo. So amazing benefits to working in large setup, but differences as well as compared to smaller setups.
Let's talk about your work at Razorpay. And talking about Razorpay, I think you joined there more than 4 years back, right? According to your LinkedIn, it's 4 years and 8 months. How many people were there when you joined?
Razorpay was maybe between 2 and 300 back when I joined in 2019. He was a decently successful startup, had raised Series B and had good product market fit in its core offering, payment gateway. I was an early customer from 2015 days, right? And I was a big fan of the offering that Shashank, SM, Harshil and the team had built. And I had admired them for a while. When I started exploring new gigs after my days at Tribo, they were one of the top ones in my mind. And very, very, I would say not very early days like my other startups where I joined in very, very early pre-PMF. It's one of the few startups I joined in post-PMF of the core offering, but still to an extent early. And one of the core goals Shashank set me up was given you come with some structure, some setup on product, can you help us scale product as a function, and can you help us scale payments to 100x from here? You achieved PMF, but what would it take to scale it, right? And a lot of partners in crime in the process. We had a good team all around. So yeah, was a fun journey over the last, has actually been a fun journey over the last 4 or 5 years.
And in the last 4 or 5 years, how many, I think Razorpay has grown quite a lot. It's a multi-product company now. How many people are there at this stage, roughly?
Razorpay must be somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 now.
Okay, so when you joined, there were 200, 300 people.
Yeah.
Now you are saying 2,000 plus, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, you talked about how there is a lot more structure at larger companies, given your experiences at companies like Yahoo. I want to understand what kind of structural changes did you see as the company grew? Because I think larger companies build structure for a reason. So what has been your experience? How was it like being part of a small early stage company which was PMF, post PMF, but still early stage to now becoming one of the largest fintech companies in the country?
So my personal take is structure is actually not an evil. In fact, I have been a big fan of introducing structure very, very early. So all the startups I worked with would have structures around OKR, structures around some defined roadmap, the way to write specs. So we've actually learned that structure gives you comfort, agility, consistency. So it's not really bad. What is bad sometimes is you got to ensure that everyone is comfortable driving decisions and you empower teams customer backwards so that they're solving customer problems and are empowered to drive decisions on their own. I think that's very essential. And that is what we see working very well at small companies. Small companies often confuse lack of structure with agility. I have learned very counterintuitively that structure actually helps you drive better agility.
Yes.
most of the startups, including Tribo, T-Box, Taggle, setups I worked with, we had decent structure. In fact, in some cases, more structure than Yahoo.
Okay.
Very surprised to see that. What has been unique about what I learned, and this I learned, both at Tribo and Razorpay, is that org design plays an extremely important role in agility. It's not the structure. And we have from the early days ensured that our organization is set up around customer problems, not around technology systems. Technology systems are a constrained metric rather than the objective function we try and put it when we design organizations. Both at Tribo and at Razorpay, very early on, a mentor at Tribo told me that unless you get your org design right, you will not have the right problems solved by your teams. You will not solve them in a fashion of excellence, and you'll have competition coming and eating your lunch. We've seen that in some of the products I have seen failing in the industry, where I felt that if those teams are focused on customer problems, those companies should have evolved rather than others coming in and building 100x outcomes when there is a technology shift. For example, when mobile shift happened, ideally Yahoo Messenger should have built what is WhatsApp today. When the AI shift is happening, we will see again similar disruptions happening unless companies are designing their organization around customer problems. And those teams, including product, engineering, design, business, everyone who's part of that smallish 2-pizza team in what Amazon calls, right, is focused around customer problem, solving the problem end to end. So at Razorpay, we've been razor focused on ensuring, we will tweak the org design if needed. So it's a feature, it's not a bug. But every small team has to be focused on a problem, has to have clear customer backward goals.
That's very interesting. I would want to know at what stage founders or product leaders should start thinking about org design. I'm asking you this because as a founder of an early stage company with about 25 people, I don't think about org design much. And I do not know when it becomes important. Given your experience, what would be your advice on that?
I think the moment you are crossing loosely, 3 pods, you got to start thinking of how the 3 pods are structured. The moment you cross like 6th, it becomes essential. I have seen most companies not delivering, shipping, building, creating value if their org design is broken at 5-6 pods.
What are pods?
Small teams of, let's say, 10-15 people, right? So solving a micro problem now. So if you are a team of 25-30, maybe you got someone solving a consumer problem, someone solving a B2B problem, someone solving a demand problem, supply problem, depending on the company. Right? As long as you are 1.5, 2 teams, it is okay, because then everyone's trying to do everything. Everyone's flexible. The moment you end up scaling, you got to have people who are focused on, parts of the problem, and that's all that they're doing. So at Razorpay, for example, when I joined, we were 4 pods in payments, which I was leading, right? And I realized that, and by the way, the org design was to an extent set up, and very thankful to some of our earlier leaders who were there. They thought about the importance of it. So we'd actually done some sort of setup. So it wasn't very unstructured where everyone's working, a largish setup. But we realized that there is, value to iterate it. So the moment it grew from 4 to 10, it was a feature to relook at it. Relook at it, go to a blank canvas and see what makes sense. The moment it went from 10 to 30, was again a feature to relook at it. Like what do you do? How should the org design look at it again? When it went from 30 to 50 again, it was a, conscious relook at how the org should look like. Of course, these disruptions we try and minimize as much as possible. But in our setup, like I remember the first one we did lasted for 18 months. Second one's now lasted for 2 years plus. Big disruption in terms of how the org is set up for most parts.
One more thing, like I wanted to talk about, because when you talked about your experiences over the last decade, you said you didn't want to become an entrepreneur as such because you think there are a lot of boring things that they have to do. That's why you chose to become an intrapreneur. So can you spend some time and talk about what do you think is boring and why some people are better off pursuing more of a leadership role and doing more of an intrapreneur thing?
No, by the way, it has multiple facets to why I didn't do it. The boring aspect is one of the facets. Second, genuinely needs a lot of courage, right? Entrepreneurship needs a lot of courage. To an extent, you have to be irrational. Uh, because if you apply a rational mind, right, most of the ROI you're looking for, if you apply probability, is better elsewhere. So you've got to have passion, you've got to have courage, and you've got to have, no fear of failure or minimal fear of failure, right? These things are essential, right? And for parts of my career, I've not had all three, right?
Okay.
So those also play a kind of a role in not dabbling with it. The more time you spend in industry, the more you start becoming rational, which again takes away the joy of doing something, creating something. Because when you start something small, you do not have a view on how this will evolve. Most entrepreneurs I talk to, their original idea on day one versus how it evolves after 3 years is like 90% changed, for the right reasons, as you learn from what you solve for your customers, market evolves, etc., right? So yeah, I think a lot of those play a role, but I also believe that entrepreneurship is a lot of things beyond the joy of building products, solving for customers. It's a lot of stuff around compliance, legal, fundraise, a lot of that as well.
A lot of
Loosely the administrative part, as
managing the payroll. Fundraise is probably one of the most soul-sucking experiences for founders. But the good thing is that some people get really good at it. And
it is still exciting to an extent compared to the other administrative aspect.
Depends in which market you are raising. Like it was fun raising in 2021.
Even if you see failures, it's intellectually stimulating.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how the conversation goes, you will get 30 no's before you get a yes.
Yeah.
But searching for a new office, setting payroll, signing up 6 contracts, signing up like 100 papers every day, it's just crazy boring. In fact, for a brief period, I have thought about entrepreneurship. I have taken like 3-4 months break between jobs, thinking about what to do. I have not found a problem that I'm very passionate about, right? While some of these things I've realized that sometimes you could have a co-founder who will do many of these as well, right? So there are ways to do many of these, right? It's not that 100% of the load is on you, right? There are friends, there are partners, you could hire someone, all of that as well. But more importantly, you've got to have passion, courage, and you've got to relate to a problem, believe in a problem, and you've got to want to spend 25 years in a problem, right? That conviction I've never had, that I am going to spend 25 years in this problem, right? Because
5 years is a very long time.
Thus, these patches as a founder, more often than not, for you to cop out is very tough. Like as an entrepreneur for me, like for example, we had certain dream about when I joined Tribo that this is what we'll try and solve for. This is how large it can become. This is a problem we are solving. We faced a lot of headwinds. We created something brilliant. Amazing team, Rahul, Siddharth, Caddy. We solved for experience big time, but in the journey we realized that we had to pivot multiple times, and finally the big dream we had set up had changed over time a lot, right? And for me, it was still to an extent possible to have a chat with Rahul saying, Rahul, this is not exciting for me anymore, right? Original dream that we started was way more exciting, and now it looks like the dream is changed. It is no longer the kind of fun I had thought of in the journey over the next 5-10 years for me to continue. Easy for me to have the chat, and maybe 6-9 months I could step out. That looks like I'm not enjoying this anymore. But if I was on the other side as a founder, it wasn't going to be easy for me to step out, right? To an extent, I would then devote at least a decade to a problem.
Yeah, that's what people say. And my view is, if you are a bootstrap founder, like you can keep doing for as long as you want. But if you are a venture funded founder, then everyone is thinking about a possible exit at the end of a 10-year cycle, something like that. For VCs, even founders, like there are so many founders in Silicon Valley who spent close to a decade at their companies. Then they moved out to build their second. So Khilan, we can spend some time talking about product management as a role now. Given your leadership role at Tribo and now at Razorpay, I would want to know, what do you think PMs and senior PMs should focus on to get into leadership roles? And a related question would be, what are the top 2-3 traits that you admire in product leaders?
Got it. So I think first, when I was a individual contributor PM, right, even until the days of T-Box, Yahoo, Taggle, I would get all the thrill by solving problems. And That's one of the reasons I became a PM, getting to speak to customers, understanding the business, building something, partnering with tech, then, selling out there in the market, and was pretty fun to do. The moment I got the opportunity to lead a team, to set up a team, product center of excellence at Rebo, I realized that now this actually is my team's role. So I started asking question, what is really my role? What am I supposed to do, right? And it was a hard, shocking truth that my role actually has become an enablement role to a great extent. And I've got to hire the best of the folks out there. I've got to ensure they are enabled, they are, empowered to solve problems on their own. At the same time, I've got to help them in few problems, maybe the top 10% problems I've got to go deep. So I think time management became extremely crucial and important. Prioritization became more brutal on where I'll spend my time. Hiring, setting up an amazing team became an essential part of, winning as a leader compared to winning as a PM. So many of these were, I think, interesting learnings. So yeah, if you are aspiring to be a PM leader or a leader in any function, first aspect is be ready that your role will change dramatically. Your role may become less exciting on some of the things you really enjoyed and had fun about, but at the same time your role will evolve, and you will get to do a lot of width and breadth. The nuances, great leaders figure out how to do width and not compromise on depth. It's a very, very tough thing to do. Most leaders and managers I have seen struggle are the ones who end up applying the same mindset and the same method to the madness they were doing as ICPMs when they end up leading, let's say, a 4-member, 6-member team, and they burn out.
Okay.
Right. So the secret sauce is if you could become a leader and you could ensure you still get the same outcome that you were getting as a great ICPM at 10x the team size. That is all possible only if you figure out, set up a great team, empower them, enable them well, still contribute in fewer areas where possible, where needed, and yeah, ensuring that the team keeps getting upskilled. Your role becomes a lot more enablement, lot more strategic, lot more things beyond product, things around sales, things around product marketing, things around analytics, a lot of those things which of course as ICPMs also you would do, but you would start doing a lot more of that as you get into leadership. So yeah, at Razorpay we actually call it boundaryless product management. So I think and many other companies have similar nuances in the West, and when I worked at Yahoo we would see some of this triggered, but in India you see PM roles a lot more build roles, a lot more closer to technology and design, right? But if you look at actual product management roles, the reason you are there as a PM is to identify and solve a customer problem, in the process create value for the organization, right? Now, which means the role is customer backwards. It's actually a very customer facing external role compared to internal build role, right? So what we have learned is that the quotient and the depth on aspects beyond build keeps going up as you scale in your career. When you start as an APM, maybe it's like 80% build, but as you become a leader, it's maybe 5% build, right? 10% build, 20% build. It's a lot more of other things, right? When you start in your career as an APM, maybe product marketing is minimal to 0. So I think amongst the 7-8 things that matter, and just the intensity, importance, and the time you spend on other aspects has to go up and is needed for you to succeed as a leader.
So Khilan, the related question was, what are the top 2-3 traits that you appreciate in product leaders?
So I think the first and the most important is ownership. I think as a product leader and as a product manager, you have to loosely be very, very high on ownership, and not easy to come by. And by the way, one of the toughest skills to assess in an interview. If you are hiring a leader, if you're hiring a product manager, it's very tough to figure out how high this individual will be on ownership.
Yeah.
So ownership gets tested in tough times, doesn't get tested in good times. So I think first one for me, trait that I look for or I think makes great leaders is ownership. Second, I think is optimism. Right? As product folks, we are ingrained to look at so many ideas and problems day in and day out, and we end up saying no to 80-90% of them.
Yes.
Many of us in the process become cynicists. That ye to nahi chalega. And that's and I think it's very tough to, I think, create something amazing and great unless you're optimistic about the possibilities of why it might work rather than why it will not work.
Yes.
Right? You have to be, asking still tough questions, but at the same time, you have to have an optimism about what can we do to make it work, right? And 9 out of 10 of your competitors will maybe not ask that question and may not even attempt that problem, right?
Yeah.
And that one small micro problem might become a differentiator if you get it right.
So these are the two traits that you look for: ownership and optimism. Anything else you want to
Ownership, optimism, I think these two become very important. Third trait, I think a very tough one to come by, right? And I myself have struggled over the years in this one, is communication and influence. Right? As a leader, one of your biggest role is to be able to rally the team around. Right?
Yeah.
If you cannot inspire the team, and that team doesn't just mean your team, it sometimes means larger extended teams which don't report into you. For product leaders, I think 80% of the teams they have to inspire will not report into them. So yeah, I think the ability to inspire and ensure that folks rally around the vision, the mission, the goal, BHAG, whatever name you give it, right, is very important, very essential. And third one is communication. As a product leader, you are such an important cog in the machinery, sometimes asking tough questions, sometimes, ensuring that, the right feedback goes through to different folks in their team. So communication becomes very important, both verbal and written. And communication is tough. As you grow as a leader, sometimes a lot of leaders end up, communicating in manners that teams on the ground become demotivated about, right? So
Yeah.
how do you ensure that you are objective, you are honest, you are demanding, you have high expectations, at the same time you're empathetic? So I think, the fourth one for me is communication. And I myself struggle on the last two a lot more than the first two.
And how did you learn these things along the way? What was your learning process in your career?
Very good one. I mean, I've learned heavily on the job. One thing I've realized is that if you enjoy what you're doing, you will end up amplifying your strengths, and you will, thrive in a career if the career demands your strengths, right? You can always get your weakness from 1-on-5 to 3-on-5, but it's very tough to get your weakness from 1-on-5 to 5-on-5 as you grow in your career.
Yeah.
It's easier to do early in your career. So the moment I had spent like 8 years in my career, I realized that from here on, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So I'm going to do things that will make me successful in areas where my strengths are appreciated. At the same time, my blind spots have to at least get to 3-on-5. So for me, first the awareness about strengths and blind spots was very important. And self-awareness, asking, help, seeking feedback from others. Surprisingly, as you grow in your career, you get lesser feedback, right?
Yeah.
People are now not comfortable sharing with you what's happening around you. And Razorpay for that way is very unique. It's created a culture where people feel comfortable, very open, very transparent. And even Rebo, I had great partners who, shared good feedback with me and ensured that I was always aware about my blind spots and areas that I need to get to like at least 3-on-5. So I think one was awareness. Second, once I was aware, I for a long time felt, is it really needed? And kept actually, I will say, deprioritizing it as a PM and learned it the hard way that it matters a lot. And saw instances like in my career where I did very poorly on these aspects and how they affected, the outcome for the organization, how they affected me, my career. And for me, some of this came through the hard way. You fail, you stumble, and then you start focusing on it. Oops, looks like we should have done this 3 years back. So for me, communication was one of those for sure.
That's the thing. Like most people actually there is a lot of advice, like you can read books and stuff. And particularly in India, when it comes to product management, in particular, I have seen things have changed quite a lot. A few years back, people used to read stuff from Silicon Valley, apply directly here, and things would not work out. And over time, now the ecosystem has grown to an extent that there is a lot of support, even for senior leaders within the company, outside the company, and there is a lot of localized playbook around how to build products, how to do GTM, how to do partnerships, and that makes it a very exciting place to build products at this point. Which brings me to one more thing I wanted to learn about. So Razorpay has lots of partnerships in place with banks, NBFCs, and lots of other merchants. I think it has one of the largest merchant partner network in the country. What would be your advice to PMs, leaders, founders who want to who want to build strong partnerships? What is it that you have learned from your experience at Razorpay?
I think the very foremost important thing is building trust, and it's very tough to build trust with new folks.
Mm-hmm.
Even the folks inside your own company, it's very tough to build trust sometimes, right? For a long time, as I grew in my product career, I realized that I've got to build trust heavily with not just my engineering partner, but my sales partner, my finance partner, my operations partner, right? Those also take time, effort, energy. They're essential and needed, because unless you trust each other, unless you back each other's decision, you will not have a winning equation. Now imagine doing this externally with partners who you do not have enough context about, who you do not spend a lot of time together, right? And you got to have experts who do it. Like we've had experts in most places. I've seen partnerships succeed, right? Who are strategic partner managers loosely, right? Designations could differ. Who are good at building trust, who are good at ensuring that what matters to your partner is equally heard, and we are aware about it. And winning partnerships are when both sides win, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you ensure that what mattered to your partner, their objectives, etc., are also happening. Your objectives are happening. Maybe 80%, 110%. That's still okay. But at the end of the day, both partners have to see value in the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
The first aspect a lot of people miss is they only look about their own value, right? And they look at partner as a distribution channel.
Mm-hmm.
I think in most cases, your partner, if they don't see value, it's not going to last.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you've got to ensure both sides see value and understand what would winning look like for your partner, not just for yourself. I think those things I think work out, and trust, relationship, honest conversations, all of these things play an important role. Getting experts who do this day in and day out is better than having people who are doing other things also, do partnerships.
So you are saying a partnership role requires dedicated expertise, and people with such expertise should actually do partnerships. Maybe early on, a journalist can start, but if you really want to make it work, you would need dedicated expertise. Correct? Second thing you said, which made me wonder how it is related to how we in product build products, thinking customer backwards. So when you said when you work with a partner, you need to think about what do they need, and talk to them in a way that also helps them achieve their objectives. Because more often than not, particularly people who have never built partnerships. In fact, I remember my own experiences at Airtribe and my previous company. Sometimes we just approach them thinking why are they not moving fast enough when our value prop is clear? But our value prop is clear to us, not to them. And what do they get from the partnership? I think that should be the core objective from our side, to make it really, really clear, so that there is momentum from both the sides. Interesting. I recently read the story about this partnership between Razorpay and Meta, and how it will enable frictionless transactions and payments on WhatsApp. Can you talk a little bit about that? What's your goal with that, and how it will help the consumers?
Yeah. Oh, in India, I think literally runs on WhatsApp, right?
Yes.
So many of us, for a large majority of Indians, WhatsApp is the only thing that they use on internet. There is nothing else. The reason they have a smartphone and a data connection is WhatsApp. Like, it's actually like more than 30-40% of India's population.
Yeah.
For the next 30-40%, WhatsApp is like 80% of our time on internet. While we do other things, that's what we end up doing for most part, right? Yeah, we are very clear that users are on WhatsApp in India, right? And to enable businesses to, drive relevant payments conversations with their users, it was important for us to partner with Meta to figure out how can we make the flow more native. So yeah, we've been, actively brainstorming, figuring out that what can we do so that when businesses want to kind of collect money, the flow is native, and hence, consumers get the best experience, businesses get the best conversion in the process, right? So I think from those conversations, because we had a genuine belief that India is a heavy, a usage of WhatsApp in India is big time. The journey of WhatsApp is interesting because the alternate is SMS, right? And SMS, we all know, is built decades back and has its own limitations. And in most users in India do not have an email address. Their email is there largely to unlock an Android phone. They don't ever, look at that inbox, right? So there is no way to communicate to, users and buyers through rich text, and WhatsApp becomes that mechanism and forum. So yeah, our view is that businesses will see a lot of revenue growth on top of this native payments on WhatsApp. Native here actually means, buyers like you and me can click pay now, can see catalog in WhatsApp, right? And when we do that, if we have turned on UPI on WhatsApp, you could just pay then and there. Alternately, if you want to use any other form of payments, etc., also it is still native to an extent. So you're not redirected to, let's say, a Chrome browser or a Safari browser if you're an iPhone, because the moment you're out of that app, the ecosystem, transitions, redirections, all that, right, makes the experience broken, latency increases, all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the experience is more seamless because you are not transitioning from 2 screens to 3 screens to 6 screens, right? It's all happening inside the WhatsApp ecosystem now.
So basically, everyone will be spending a lot more going forward.
Hope so, yeah. Our real competition is cash, so I hope everyone spends a lot more digitally at least.
So great to have you on the podcast, Khilan. I learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure our audience is going to learn a lot from some of the things that you said. And hope to keep in touch and have you again when you have more time next time. And
thanks for hosting me, Navneet. Thanks for having me around.